Hello and welcome to the Mindset Coach podcast, the show where coaches and coaches-to-be tune in to learn how to integrate mindset coaching tools and neuroscience-based techniques into their practice and grow and scale a coaching business they love. Each week I'll be sharing easy-to-implement tips, case studies and business strategies that you can use right away to transform your own mindset and the mindset of those you coach. I'm your host, Lara Young, founder of the Mindset Coach Academy, author of 52 Adventures to Change Your Life, award-winning business owner, coach and coach trainer. Tune into this podcast each Friday, free on all the podcasting apps, and click to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And remember, mindset is everything. Well, hello and welcome. This week, I wanted to talk about the importance of having a really robust diagnostic process in your coaching practice. And this is going to be part of a two-part series on diagnostic work, because as coaches, we know that it's really important that we understand our client's problem fully before we actually begin to use any coaching interventions. And that level of understanding needs to be rather deep because, as you and I know, sometimes we can be working with a client and we're not actually working on the problem. We're working on what is not the problem. Often our clients will come to us and they'll say to us that they have a certain situation that keeps happening in their lives, or they may come with a presenting problem, something that's on the surface, but actually what we really need to work with is something that is deeper than that is below what at the conscious level they understand is happening for them in their life or in their business. And so we really want to be able to deepen our understanding. We want to be able to know the problem, be able to, in some cases, replicate the problem ourselves. So if I was to replicate my client's strategy for doing the problem, whether that is being in overwhelm or overeating or not being visible online, then could I do it? Could I do that problem? And so as coaches, we really want to start off with a very clear foundation and a very solid foundation as to what the problem is and how our client operates. How do they tick? And of course, specifically being the founder of the Mindset Coach Academy, I'm really interested in my client's mindset and the role that their mindset actually plays in the achievement or not of their goals and the resolution or not of their problems. So one of the things that I've done in recent years, very recently, is I actually partnered up with Dr. Trish Kemp, who is also a certified mindset coach, and we created the Mindset Dimensions report. Now, the Mindset Dimensions report is designed to measure the 7 key elements of mindset. And it does so through a web application, iOS and Android apps. And it takes around 30 minutes to complete and giving you all the data, the information that you need to start working with your clients. And the reason that we built this tool, that we developed this assessment, was really because, you know, I don't know if you've worked in the corporate world before, but many of you will probably have done things like Myers-Briggs inventory. You might have done a DISC profile or a Hogan profile. And what we found was that those profiles are great at measuring behavior and behavioral preferences, but they didn't really give us the information that we needed for that comprehensive look at mindset. So the thing for us as coaches, of course, and particularly as mindset coaches, is that we really know that lasting transformation happens at the unconscious level. And that's why we really want to, with the diagnostic tool, understand our clients' unconscious beliefs, their behavioral patterns, their values, their thoughts, and their emotional frequency. And it's so important for us to understand those things because every client is different. We know that. What we don't, I think, recognize often enough is that every client is completely different because even though they may present with the same problem, so say, for example, you're a weight loss coach or a business coach, or you work in the area of money mindset or nutrition, whichever area you work in, you could be a dating coach. When your client comes to you, the likelihood is that, you know, because you're working in a specific niche, clients will come to you with the same or very similar problems. The interesting thing is that the way that they actually do those problems, so how they actually show up and maintain those problems in their lives or in their businesses, will be completely different. And of course, that's because of all of those programs that they're running at the subconscious and the unconscious level. And so unless we take the time to have that foundation and have that deep understanding of what those things are, then we can be wasting some time as a coach. We can be wasting our time and our clients' time, because we really do need to get to know what are the factors, what are those influencing factors that make a difference for your client. And there are different combinations, for example, of behavioral preference and emotional frequency. There are different preferences of, values, the highest values that your client will hold. There's also their beliefs. What do they believe is possible for them in terms of their capability? But also, what do they believe they're deserving of, that they're worthy of, that they can actually achieve? And once we start to look at these things and we look at them in the round, so we have a holistic approach, we can see that, even if at the outset your client is presenting with a very similar problem to the client you've had before and clients you'll have in the future, you know that the way in which they actually do that problem, the way they maintain and experience that problem, is going to be different. There is a difference between, for example, coaching someone who is high on the introversion preference scale and someone who is high on the extroversion preference scale. That just makes sense, right? You're not going to be using the same interventions. You're not going to be using the same tasking for someone who has high preference for introversion as you are for someone who has a high preference for extroversion. Similarly, someone who expresses a high negative emotional frequency and displays high frequency of emotions like frustration or overwhelm or anger or fear, you're going to work with them in a very different way than you are with someone who has high levels of optimism, of calm, of getting things done, of actually taking action. And so the dynamics actually within your client's mindset, so very important to understand. And so in developing the Mindset Dimensions report, we wanted to create that really professional foundation for the coaching relationship. We also wanted to create something that combined qualitative information and quantitative information alongside coaching tips, so that once you have the information about your client, once we've calibrated the information and once you're presented with it, you not only get that, you don't only get the snapshot, but we also wanted to equip people with the tools to be able to coach based on the results. So make recommendations for things like tasking, like where to work with the client first, what to really focus on. And I think that really is unique. It's unique in the industry. It's unique in the marketplace. And I know there's a lot of work that's been done on growth or fixed mindset, so based on the work of Carol Dweck, but it doesn't really go far enough, because we know that this isn't enough to support you as a coach or a therapist or a psychologist in creating lasting change. And that's because, yes, we can measure the elements of growth and fixed mindset in individuals and in teams. But where this digs and goes a lot deeper is that mindset is so complex that we really want to understand how all of those dimensions combine. So beliefs, thoughts, emotions, behaviors, values, perception, language, and identity, how all of those things combine to help your client or hinder your client in achieving the results that they're achieving. And no other tool measures all of these different dimensions. Now, of course, one of the things I think that really is key about the coaching relationship is those early days. And fundamental to having a successful coaching relationship and, beginning to build that rapport with your client is having a really solid and strong onboarding process. And so when you use a tool like the Mindset Dimensions report, what that means is that straight away your clients are having an experience that is going to validate and reinforce their buying their purchase, right? The fact that they've signed up to work with you. Because straight away they have the experience of someone being interested in these different dimensions of their mindset and interested enough that they are asking them these questions, that they're sharing this diagnostic tool so that that can play a role in part of the foundation of moving forward and working with your client. And what it then does for you, of course, is it enables you to look at the report and to really look at where the key areas of focus are going to be. It provides you with some amazing information about, where you want to be looking with your client and what are those levers that are going to help you to have, the most impact. And the other thing, of course, is that by showing you where your clients are in terms of those behavioural continuums, you can also task more effectively. You can prepare more effectively for your sessions with your clients. And you can also then start to think about, okay, so as I future pace my client's experience, what are they going to be experiencing all the way through this relationship, all the way through this coaching process, this coaching journey with me? And what do I need to be mindful of? And it really helps you to plan out your sessions really effectively within that context of the coaching framework that you use. That's the framework, of course, we've talked about in previous episodes that helps you to really identify what are the steps, what are the things that your client will go through and that you will guide your client through in order to help them achieve that outcome. And not just achieve it, but, that you will help your clients to reliably and consistently achieve that outcome. And so what you can do once you have this diagnostic, once you have the information available from the Mindset Dimensions report, is you can actually then really start to plan out your sessions and maybe even rearrange the order of some of the sessions that you are going to be hosting and working with your client through. So it's really powerful because what it also, of course, enables you to have is that snapshot as to where your client's mindset is before they start working with you, and you can remeasure. And it's a really tangible metric. Now, the Mindset Dimensions report is ipsative. That means that it's by your client and about your client. They're answering questions about themselves. And so when you share the information with them, it's highly resonant. It's as though they are on the page, they're leaping off the page at themselves. What that also means, of course, because we have that quantitative data, is that you can then remeasure at the end of, say, 6 months of working with a client, and there's there's more tangible evidence of the transformation that they have made as an individual across all of those areas of their mindset. And of course, that's in addition to the changes that they're making that are tangible in terms of the actions that they've taken, the results they've achieved. So it speaks really to the need for you to have some more metrics in your business as well as a coach. Because I think that's something that some coaches, we struggle with, is to say, well, what have the results been? How do we measure the effectiveness of coaching, not just in the container or the time frame that we're working in, but actually be beyond that, and what transformation have we helped our clients to make at the conscious level, also the subconscious and the unconscious level as well. So the thing is that you'll be able then to, of course, measure that progress and to do it really easily through that remeasure. And there's something that the client is familiar with as well, and they can recognize that they have made those changes. They can recognize the transformation that has happened for them, and it becomes a great reference point. The other useful thing about Mindset Dimensions as a tool in your coaching practice or your therapy practice is that we've made it really easy for you to administer and also for you to access and download the reports. And so we have a web-based application, as I said, and one of the elements of it, it comes in two formats. One is in the web notes view, which actually has blank sections that you can fill in. So you can make your own notes. You can make notes for the client. You can put tasks in there for the client. And then when you save it into the visual report, all of that information goes in there for them. And of course, if you don't want your client to see it, then they don't need to see it either. But it's a great way for you just to make your own notes and to have all that information there in one place that you can easily access. And, I think if you're anything like me, creating those client files, having that information all in one place is just so powerful because it helps you to reduce the amount of time that you spend preparing and re-going over things because it's all there at your fingertips. Want to learn more about how you can become a certified mindset coach? Head on over to our website, www.mindsetcoachacademy.com/coach certification, and you'll find all the information that you need along with a button to book a call with me to talk about how you can become the best coach you can be. Now, the thing, of course, about Mindset Dimensions is that we did want to make sure that we were measuring all of the different elements of mindset. And we recognize, and there's an earlier episode where I talk about every dimension of mindset. What we wanted to do when we created Mindset Dimensions is to look at the key dimensions that we could actually measure from using a diagnostic tool like this, from questionnaire-based assessment. Now, of course, things like someone's detailed personal history, things like someone's memories, we can't necessarily measure through a tool like this, and so we don't. Okay, there are other diagnostic tools that you'll use to elicit that information, and I'll talk about those in the next episode. What we can measure, though, reliably, accurately, and consistently are our clients' representational system preferences. So how do they prefer to experience the world? Are they more visual? Are they more auditory? Are they more kinesthetic? Or are they more auditory digital? And so that's very, very powerful information from the outset that you have about your client. If you have a client who's highly visual, then you know that you can use some of the processes like working with submodalities, visualization, hypnotherapy. Those kind of processes tend to work very, very well with a visual client. You also know, for example, if someone is more kinesthetic, and you can adjust your language and your tasking very much around that kinesthetic preference. And in the report, we give you the predicate phrases, the words to actually use with your client based on their preference. And this, of course, increases your rapport level with your client. We also measure beliefs. Now, there are two areas in belief that we know it's really important to measure. The first one is your client's belief about their self-efficacy and their capability. So how capable do they believe they are of achieving their goal? The second element in beliefs is about their helplessness, hopelessness, and worthiness. Now, this is really about, do they feel like they are worthy of achieving a goal? Do they feel like they are deserving of achieving a goal? And this is really valuable information, of course, for us as coaches, because it helps us to know where to begin in our exploration of our clients' beliefs. And of course, our clients all have beliefs that help them and hinder them. And what we really want to know is more detail about the beliefs that hinder them, and to be able to change those beliefs or remove those beliefs using processes like conscious belief change, submodalities belief change, or timeline therapy, which is incredibly powerful for removing those limiting decisions that precede limiting beliefs. Then we also want to know, and we measure, our client's emotional frequency. Emotion actually precedes behavior. Emotion drives behavior. And so we want to understand how often our client experiences certain emotions that are unresourceful, also called negative emotions, and emotions that are resourceful, so positive emotions. Because what we want to understand in that is, what is our client experiencing on an emotional level, and how does that then support and help or hinder the achievement of their goals and their action taking? Okay. And we can again use processes working with our client to remove those negative emotions. And we can use a range of different processes like reframing, like our submodalities work, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy. There are so many ways that we can help our client to change the impact of those negative emotions that they're experiencing. And equally, we can heighten the impact of their positive emotions that they're experiencing. We can use powerful processes like putting a goal in the future. We can use processes like anchoring to really anchor in those amazing feelings of achievement, success, love, happiness, those positive emotions, motivation that our client really wants to harness in order to change their lives, transform their businesses. The next one is values. Now, values is a really key one when it comes to measuring mindset, and it's one of our key mindset dimensions because values drive motivation. And that is what also, of course, drives behavior. Values are about what is important to you in a context in your life. And I say in a context in your life because the values are not general, they're very specific and specifically related to different contexts in which we operate. So in practice, what that means is that we measure 8 different areas of someone's life. I'll give you some examples. We measure their values in relation to their health. We measure values in relation to their career, which is also in relation to their business. We measure values around relationships. We measure 8 different contexts, so 8 different areas of our client's life, and we elicit the values there that they have. Not only that, so not only do you get a list of the values across each of those 8 areas, you also get a list of the values that your client responded to most often. So we get their most commonly espoused values. And that's really, really powerful for us as we go on and we do our in-depth values work. So we have the initial values elicitation through the Mindset Dimensions report, and then we go in deeply and we actually explore what do those values mean to our client? How are they living those values at the moment in that area of their life? What evidence is there that that value or those values are supported? And of course, our values process, our values coaching framework is very in-depth and it's very, very powerful. And this sits as the foundation for that, knowing our clients' values, and then we can start to work with them in a deeper, clarifying way that really helps our clients to create those changes. Now, the next area that we measure, and I've mentioned it before, is behavioural preferences. So we measure dominant balanced behaviours and behavioural preferences across a continuum. We have 20 different behaviours that we measure. And this is really important because, as I mentioned earlier, if you're working with a client who has a high introversion preference versus a client who has a high extroversion preference, you're going to be using different tools, techniques, and strategies and tasking with those 2 clients. You're going to be asking them to look at how their behavioural preferences have positively impact their lives at the moment and businesses, and maybe how they can stretch and how behavioural flexibility will help them in the future. And we measure a range of different behavioural preferences. We look, for example, at whether someone is more global in their thinking, global in their preference, or more detailed. Do they need lots of information before they start a project, for example? Now, it's interesting how these play out in relationships. So imagine that you're working with a couple who have different preferences. One has a global preference and the other one has a very detailed preference. And imagine, if you will, that they're going on holiday. The person with a global preference only needs to know where they're going. And maybe they might say, well, let's just buy a ticket. Let's just buy a ticket and we'll arrange our accommodation when we get there. Of course, the detailed person is pretty freaked out by this because the detailed person wants to know exactly what's going to be happening and when. So they'll want to know, like, when will we leave for the airport? What will we do at the check-in gate? Will we get coffee before or after we go through the gate? When we go through the gate, we're going to get some water at Boots and we might get a snack there. And they're going to have the itinerary planned out. They're going to have done a lot of research. They'll have the hotel booked. They'll have some activities booked in advance as well. And they may even have a full daily itinerary already planned as to what's happening. And you can see there straight away, there's some tension, isn't there? And we can translate this tension into teams in the workplace, into relationships in the workplace. where you might have someone who is a global, the boss is global, has a global preference, and one of their team members has a very detailed preference, or vice versa. And so they're only two examples of the behavioural preferences that we actually measure, but already you can start to see how the difference in someone's behavioural preference does make a difference to the way in which they show up in the world, but also the way in which you're going to coach them and work with them. One of the other ones, I'll just mention a third one that we measure, is whether someone has a preference to move towards what they desire, so towards a goal, or whether they have a preference to move away from what they don't want. Okay. Now, it's very interesting because, of course, as coaches, we want to orient our clients always towards what it is that they desire. So someone may come to you and they'll say, I don't want to be single. I don't want to be in this job anymore. I don't want to be broke. What we want to do is we want to orient them towards what it is that they do want. So if you don't want to be single, what do you want? If you don't want to be in this job anymore, what do you want? If you don't want to be broke, what do you want? And I covered this off in a previous episode around helping clients to know what they want. You can see already there's a tension there, isn't there? So if someone has an away from preference, they're typically people who will not take action until the bridge is burning, right? Until it's absolutely necessary, until they feel such a level of discomfort that they recognize really the only option is for change. Now, again, it's a behavioural continuum. So it's a long line and people move up and down that line. And it is interesting though, isn't it? How you would change the way that you coach and you approach coaching with someone at either end of that spectrum. Because look, it's not all sunshine and roses for the person who has a highly towards motivation either, because they can sometimes miss that devil's advocate, that ability to weigh up the pros and cons. And of course, we would look at this individual in the round. So we would look at their emotional preferences. If they also had high levels of optimism, for example, then that's interesting to us. So they move towards what they want. They have high levels of optimism. They have high belief in their capability. They have high belief in their deservedness and worthiness. And that becomes interesting for us to look at those different permutations and those different interrelationships between the different dimensions. Now, the next one that we measure is the language patterns that our clients use, and specifically what they're choosing to focus on in their experience, and how we know by the way they talk to us, by the information they choose to reveal, what they're missing. And here it's really for us as coaches about minding the gap. And this is about minding the gap between what the coach says and what they don't say, and really tuning in and listening for that missing information. So what this element of the report measures is it measures our clients' level at which they distort, delete, and generalize information in their experience. And it helps us to help them to maybe pay attention to areas that they haven't been paying attention to in the past, or to helping them to focus in a different way so that they can change their perspective and their perception of the world around them, the experiences that they have in personal relationships, for example, and the way in which their self-talk impacts on their ability to achieve their goals, to take action, and also impacts their emotional responses as well. So you can see that all of these areas really combine in a very holistic way to give us a picture and a very, very quick snapshot at what someone's mindset is like before they start working with us. And this foundation is so powerful because understanding your client's mindset is one of the most important things on the path to helping them achieve their goals and transform their lives. Now, the thing is, we wanted to be able to help you to drill down quickly, easily, and effectively on these areas, and that's what we've done. Now, the thing with Mindset Dimensions, of course, like any diagnostic tool, is that it's not something that you can just use and then effectively coach on unless you've had some experience and training with the different dimensions. So unless you've already had experience in learning I guess, other psychometric profiling tools, but also in learning the coaching techniques that you need to have in order to be able to coach based on the results. So say, for example, your client's report says that they have a high level of negative belief about themselves, about their capability and their deservedness and their worthiness. Say, for example, they have a high negative emotional frequency or even a high positive emotional frequency. Say, for example, they have a lot of values misalignment in their report. Then these are skills that you actually need from a coaching perspective, because it's kind of like doing the report and now what? This isn't like a Cosmo quiz. I don't know if any of you read Cosmo as teenagers, but those Cosmo quizzes. It's not like that, where you can kind of predict the answer and then know what to do as a result. This is really where you, as the coach, the therapist, the psychologist, the leader, need to be able to understand, first of all, what do the results mean? What are they telling you about your clients? But also, how does this then shape your coaching and the coaching interventions that you're going to be using with your client? And so what we've done with the report, and because we want to keep the integrity of it and I guess the robustness of with which it's used, there are two ways that you can access the report. The first one is if you're already a certified coach, if you already have a coaching certification. And by coaching certification, I do mean by a recognized organization who have an industry body, who are aligned with an industry body, such as, for example, the Mindset Coach Certification Program. So if you've got those certifications already, then you can simply purchase the Mindset Dimensions report, and that we train you in how to read and interpret and administer the report. And the presupposition there is, of course, that once you have the results, how to effectively coach based on them. Now, the second way is that we have a Mindset Dimensions practitioner training. Now, in the practitioner training, what we do is we take you through the report, you have an experience of it yourself, and then we take you through 8 in-depth modules where we look at each of the different areas of mindset and we explore with you different permutations of results, what they mean, as well as provide you with techniques for coaching based on the results. So we actually work with you to help you to identify what the report is showing you about your client, what it's telling you about your client, and then we have some coach training in there as well, embedded in that, where we teach you what to do based on the results, okay? And specifically, we teach you some tools and techniques that you can use based on what the client's report is showing you as a coach, therapist, leader. And that's really, really powerful. So that training is a combination of online training, so some preparatory work that you do, and also live in-person training. And for both of those elements, so whether or not it's just the Mindset Dimensions report that you purchase, or whether it's the Mindset Dimensions practitioner training, there is also a community, a Facebook community that we have. And I run monthly masterclasses live. There are 2 time slots for the different time zones. And in those masterclasses, what we do is we look at a certain area of the report. I do a little bit of coaching supervision. We have a coaching clinic. And obviously throughout, you can also ask questions, and we provide assistance with the administration of the report and also with the interpretation of reports as well. So it's really, really beneficial. And I think one of the things that we've found is that, which is absolutely brilliant, and what we were hoping, is that the coaches that are using this, not only are they finding incredible value in using the tool, but their clients are seeing themselves reflected back. They are looking, they're going through the report, their coach works with them based on the report, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is me. And of course, when you have a diagnostic of this nature, that's exactly what you want. You want to be working with a client and your client says, yes, that is me. I recognize that within myself. And so it is such an incredible foundation for your coaching And it also, I guess, uplifts that level of professionalism as well, doesn't it? Because, you're able to have this instrument that is very professionally, administered for a start, but it also actually helps you to find those patterns with your client and really do that preparatory work that is going to save you time when working with your client. And it also means that you'll get to the heart of the matter, get to the root cause of your client's problem, if they have a problem, or get to the area that you need to focus on most to help them accelerate their success much more quickly than without it. And so I'm going to drop a link below this podcast episode to the Mindset Dimensions report. And in our next episode, I'll be talking about some conversational diagnostic tools that you can use with your client and some of the other things that we can use the Mindset Dimensions report for as well. And also, if you're already trained in other diagnostic tools like DISC or Myers-Briggs, how you can integrate those tools into your coaching practice. I'm Lara Young. I'm the founder of the Mindset Coach Academy, co-founder of the Mindset Dimensions report, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon. Bye for now. Well, that wraps up this week's episode of the Mindset Coach podcast. Remember to join us next week for another episode and subscribe on iTunes. Leave us a review if you've loved it. Share it with your friends. And I really look forward to learning how you're implementing the tools and techniques that you're learning here. Mindset is everything.